I'm going to start my video over. I accidentally hit some buttons. I wanted to start with Holly Ann. I don't know. I'm going to put her in the video. I sanitized the engine. I'm enjoying my bad habit, and I wanted to discuss with people about the. I'm going to try to move this gasket up so you guys can see the number. That's the carbureted gasket for the engine. There are holes that you're going to need to drill from this intake gasket. So I would suggest getting the headset. Now this is for the fuel injected version, not the carbureted version. And I'll tell you here, if you're doing this fuel injected version, about those holes are not in the carbureted gasket. So if you get this, which is going to fit almost everything else, and it'll be pretty damn accurate, versus getting a carbureted set, there's stuff for here that you're going to, out of this, that you're going to need, and the different, this one came with the better valve guide seals. And I have gotten this set in the past. I have another set in there for another truck that we're doing down at our other shop, and that had the umbrella valve guide seal. So I don't know what the difference is. There's no difference in the part number. It's just they put crappy ones in one box and crappy in the other. But I had good luck with this because everything fit out of this except for the intake is not going to fit. But you're going to need that intake gasket unless your shooting eye is as good as mine that you can just drill them in there. But I already had the gasket secured on there, went to put the exhaust manifolds on there, and Lord and behold, there were holes that were not in the carbureted version because they have a different type of exhaust manifold on the older carbureted trucks. So I try to save people money and I try to save them time, because you're going to make that mistake, get everything all together, and it's going to be like shit. You don't want to wreck a perfectly good gasket, have it glued to the block. That's why I use the real cheap adhesive, the spray adhesive. Folks, you cannot beat that spray adhesive for keeping gaskets in place, that they don't move out or you don't bump them. If you bump them, they kind of stay put, or you can kind of stick them right back down even if they do distort. So I sanitized this engine, and please tell Google and YouTube to turn my comments section back on. They're really pissing me off. Every time I say something naughty about the Chinese or Joe Biden, I get chastised. Now I'm looking at it's Bell Howard Company. They make like an air scoop. It goes over your air cleaner. It forces air, and it comes across here up into the front of your truck, because the battery box is over here, so it will be in the way. Here you can kind of cut your firewall out in this area right here, and you cut the radiator support, I should say, and you can put the scoop in the radiator support to get the cold air from outside. Versus it's almost like the cold air version, the cold air intake version, like on the Silverados, them tube scoop ones. But you still have your stock air cleaner. It just feeds the air down on top of the air cleaner, which is a really neat concept, because it does make a difference, because we do stuff like that to the stock cars. But as you can see, I sanitized the entire engine. I don't work with greasy shit. I've got a ton of money in this truck, and I'll be damned if I'm going to put it back together with old rusty bolts and greasy shit. That'll stay nice, because I'm the kind of guy, I keep, just like I keep everything else I own, I keep it like a doctor's office. My trucks, my work truck's a little in disarray. She's going to get cleaned up this week, and that Nissan's going to get done. The Silverado came back. I had a heart attack. The torque converter, the torque converter, the communicator inside the transmission. It's when you don't maintain your vehicle and it gets to be a certain age, that stuff, after everything else starts working right, that shit's going to go haywire. It's kind of common sense. But this guy I'm dealing with, I used to work for the guy's father, and he doesn't seem to have common sense. Oh, well, it was working fine. That's why I'm going out of my way with this thing to replace shit. I know as soon as the normal force is that motor is going to have a lot of compression. That motor is going to have a lot of snot. That's a 450 grind cam. That is just slightly under having to put shims and everything else in different valve springs. You can still sort of use the stock setup, but it's kind of like an it's the Howard's cam version of the Crane Fireball. It's going to pack a wallop, especially with the shaved head. And the block is also expanded. Somebody bored that out about 25 thousandths over. They really went to town. That's why I said that was a reman block. That was nothing somebody took locally to a machine shop and had done here, by what I see. The work on it, but by the way, the boring and all that, that's what I'm saying. I can tell whether somebody did shit like that locally. We just have a new machine shop. It's called High Tech. If you're in the Poconos of Pennsylvania and you want machine work done, his name is Dave Cressley, and he owns High Tech Machine, and it's in Weisport, Pennsylvania, right on Bridge Street. It's just a little garage door in the middle of some freaking houses. Believe me, I drove up and down the street about 5 times before well, that's got to be the place, because my GPS kept taking me in front of the door. So there was a man door there. I went in the man door, and it's a big long shop, and it packs a wallop. That guy's like kind of like my skinny narrow shop that you see in my videos, but the place packs a wallop because it has all the latest equipment. He's doing BMW heads, foreign heads, and stuff like that. And it's beer 30 on a Sunday. I tried getting grass cut, and we keep having these repetitive storms rolling in one after the other, and that's why I said it's a good day to make a video. It's kind of a lost day, and clue you guys in that now the real work begins. I got to get her feet back under her, so to speak. So I'm going to peek at her brakes, which all seem to be redone, even the lines and stuff like that. But she's missing her emergency brake cable. We have rotted lines for the fuel return, so I got to replace all those fuel return lines. And then we have one brake line that as I said, whoever got a hold of this truck after the original guy started on it was a real nugget. Nuggets, and that's aviator talk for a rookie. You know, when you take them up in a jet for the first time, turn it upside down, they come back with nuggets in their pants. But anyway, that's something from us old school pilots, nugget. But anyway, that is a product. I have a triple gauge set from Bosch that I picked up cheap, and I mean cheap, 40 bucks. They're online. Some places are cheaper, some places are more online with them. So she's going to get triple gauges. She's going to get her wiring all straightened out, and she's going to get her legs back under her. Once I have this wiring pretty much the way I want it, I need some new battery cables. As I said, putting a bunch of broken stuff back in a truck. These guys that are making these videos, like all it needs is brakes, and they start driving it around and they get stuck down the road. Well, I'll tell you what, you do that here, even though this is the Poconos and it's kind of a remote, more relaxed area, somebody's going to plow right into you if you break down. You're not fooling around with this stuff up here on farm roads. These roads are heavily traveled by these quarry trucks, the coal trucks. You just don't fool around with your personal safety and somebody else's that can get killed when you get nailed. Your truck can slingshot into somebody else. And this thing is one of the heaviest pickup trucks that I have ever, even having. I would hate to see that with a big block engine in it, what that thing would weigh. That truck would have to weigh flat foot over 8,000–9,000 pounds if there was a big block. I'm pretty sure from what I looked up, this truck weighs almost 7,300 pounds. You add another 500 or 600 with a big block engine, it's going to be over I think it's 8,100 pounds with the big blocks in them. Now, I'm saying I did that on Google research, and Google's not the most accurate. Like I said, if you want to know what the Chinese are doing, you'll get a bullshit story, and if you really want real facts, you'll get another bullshit story. Google's good for some things, but not others. So that's the way I approach a project now, is I got to go through everything. We did manage to get the wrong alternator for it, so I don't know if I'm going to have to eat it or if DB Electric will take it back. I didn't install it, I just looked at it, and it's the wrong one. There's stuff I don't get time to take it out of the box because I'm busy. I'm doing other people, like I said, the guy with the Silverado there that one you saw me doing, he wore out his welcome, basically, and with his mouth and his dumb attitude. Okay, I'm not the guy that made the torque converter, the communicator go bad. That's something he never had the transmission service. These people, they drive these things into the ground and they bring it here, and yeah, well, it needs this, can you do that? And it needs that, can you do that? Yeah, and fix it. And as I said, that's why I went to these lengths. New heater hose. I don't have the new blower motor in her yet. I don't have the new master cylinder on her yet. There you see the new fuel, new power steering pump. There's a new water pump. New timing gears. By the way, these timing gears, when you break these motors down, and if you're going to do something like with this Offenhauser, even with the stock engine, that timing gear is plastic. It's Bakelite, and once you start pouring more power into that engine, that gear is going to shatter. And it can, with the parts and the bits when it breaks, go into the motor, and it can get sucked up in a bearing. So this one was intact, but like I said, the other Nugget that owned it, he overheated. They put basically the stock head back on it, never had it cut, never had it gone over. And although the head was in really good shape, I think they did do the valves, but they never cut it. Or when they overheated it with putting the old radiator back in it, they warped the head. So the head ended up getting cut almost 15 thousandths. And I'm just that far from needing a shim underneath the works. But anyway, it's going to clatter like hell. It's been sitting. Once it gets started up, it's really going to make a lot of noise because the lifters are not pumped up at all. I noticed that as I was turning the motor over and putting the valves back together and checking everything, making sure we're on top dead center. Um, you got to think before you do a project like this. And if I can save somebody the nightmare, like I said, I already had the gasket stuck on the motor block. Then I went to put the exhaust manifolds on, and I'm like, shit, where's the bolt hole? Well, dumb, you should have checked. I never thought of laying the other gasket. I really just didn't think that far. And you guys are going to get that way too. You're going to think to a point. This is the way, as I imagine the cam was going to go in like a nightmare and trying to get that gear lined up and everything. It went right back together like butter. I use transmission fluid. I don't use assembly lube. I'm not a big assembly lube fan. Not in a motor that's been run already. Now, if it's a new motor with new bearings and stuff like that, sometimes even that assembly lube can actually make the bearings drag, especially the camshaft bearings. And the new lifters on new lobes and stuff, that shit can drag. And you will notice it when you start it up. You're going to see how hot those battery cables get, especially on a Ford. GM's not too bad, but the starter heats up on a GM. I've put how many new motors in, and I already told the customer, get another starter for it. See how it does. See if you can get it running. Sometimes it's fine. It goes, and they have it. But most of the time, the truck came back. It broke down because the starter, it took a shit from trying to get it running again because they strain. The fuel injected trucks, the rails are not full of fuel when you had the motor out of them. Sometimes you had the tank out of them too if you're doing a total rebuild. Till that line and stuff gets enough pressure and enough fuel in it. Sometimes it's a couple minutes of spinning it over because the motor's turning slower because of the load of the new bearings and everything on it till it gets oil up in it. And sometimes you start it up. I've had motors that have dragged for a week or two before the bearings and everything finally settled in, and then you could turn them over like normal. There are times when you're going to have to think about what you're doing and how you're going to go about it. And when I'm reassembling that stuff, I'm going to use transmission fluid. I don't care if it's the crank bearings, camshaft. I'm going to use transmission fluid because it's nice and slippery. That cam went right in there like I was having nightmares about trying to get it lined up. And I used a long bolt. I used a bolt about this long. I got down at my depot there. It's like a Fastenal. It's a radiator shop. They have nuts and bolts. I got a really long bolt, so I had more control over getting that cam in there than just trying to grab it by the gear and the cam itself. I could grab it right by the lobes, just behind the gear, and I controlled it with that bolt, and it went in. I mean, I used the glove. I made it, a nice thick, that you can control it. I wrapped a glove around the bolt, and I had a glove on my hand, so it glided right in, and it was no problem. Because that did bother me when I went to sleep. It's like, I'm going to fight this camshaft going in this freaking motor because I fought getting the old one out. But I realized the bearings were dry as hell. So once I lubed up the new cam with the transmission fluid, it slid right in. Nothing like a beer on a hot Sunday. Like I said, it's been a hot week. I'm worn out to a frazzle. I'm going to get to bed early tonight. We're actually having tube steak dinner. I got some nice Dutch German hot dogs down at the butcher. I love their hot dogs. I never met a hot dog I didn't like. I always tell people that. I'm like Andy Griffith that way. You give me a hot dog, I'm perfectly happy with a hot dog. Sometimes I'll actually take hot dogs over a steak. How about that? Or even fried chicken, believe it or not. So I'm going to just close my video with saying now is time to do the lines, the brake lines, go over her legs, because as soon as that alternator comes, and that fuel pressure regulator comes for the carburetor, she's going to be ready to run. Now, I don't know if this fuel pump that's in this side tank, I will definitely not be able to get it running with that pump if that pump is not, according to what I'm learning, that pump is out of like a 91, 92, so it should run continually. So I don't know if I'm going to have to wire the pumps yet. I know I'm going to have to wire the rear pump, or I'm going to get a factory switch and see if I can wire it that way. But either way, I have not decided yet. But to get it running, I'm just going to pour gas down it, or I'm going to take a jug full of with a hose on it, you know, gas can or whatever. I'm going to put some, liquid down it and see if I can get her to fire. Then I know I got a running truck, and then I can button everything up. And next year we can get going on the bed. I've got a bunch of guys, they're Ford enthusiasts. They're supposed to be coming up out of Pottsville. It's a pair of brothers and their buddies. They're going to help me heft that bed around because that bed weighs more than a battleship. That's why I said the weight of this truck is impressive. I mean, it is just massively a meaty metal truck. And that's why it didn't rot away like these Silverados with these cardboard frames that weigh practically, you have a Silverado that's twice as long as this truck, and it weighs just about as much as this truck. Well, this truck, if you had a Silverado this size, like that short bed over there, is basically the version of this. That truck over there weighs almost 2,500 pounds less than this truck. That truck over there is only, I think that thing is only 4,600 or 4,400 dry weight. Like I said, dry weight. This thing, I'm being told, weighs in at almost 6,800 pounds. Holy shit! And that's why I said put that in with couple that with a big block engine and whatever else, spare tire, whatever else you could throw in the truck. You're driving around a 10,000 GVW truck. Holy cow! And the six-cylinder engine is a nice touch to any of those trucks. The six cylinders, they were not the GM version of that engine is not. I never swore by them. The GM six cylinders, they can keep them. Now the 225 slant six that Chrysler made, you could also make a beast out of those engines, believe it or not. But these are a beast factory. It's just that they put that crappy fuel injection and all that crappy, whatever you want to call emission stuff on it. I mean, this thing had more wires and lines. Look at that. You folks just got to look at that. Look at that crap. Look at that. I'm going to tilt the camera. I don't want it to fall off. I mean, there's just a massive wad of gaga wires. I don't want my camera falling off the tripod here. So you guys, take it from me. Take your project slow. Clean the parts up. Have the parts cleaned. That was a lot of money to pay the guy. I must have paid over $100 to have the guy glass bead all those parts. And, well, they look nice. Some of the stuff I replaced. The only thing I didn't replace was that tensioner. And those are a really heavy tensioner. I've never really seen them go bad. When they go bad, they totally break. They're not like something that loses their tension, not like other things. I don't know what I just saw on my roof over there. Another critter running up and down the roof. Take it slow. Clean things up. You don't want dirt and garbage or I did a lot of drilling and making some of my own fabrications there. And I don't want the stuff going in there. I put a different type of bolt there on the water pump pulley because they have like a thread that bites. And I actually took a tap and I got rid of that thread that bites because they're a bastard. When they're 5 or say 10 years old, you go to get that pulley back off that pump. A lot of times you're going to destroy the pulley. Or especially if it rusted. I put some anti-seize in there so the pulley does not rust to that. That new pump is probably made out of that garbage metal, even though it was a Gates pump. And anybody buying a factory Gates pump, I cut this off. I had it just would not fit like it should. It was right in the way of the other neck, the neck right there, the filler neck. So you are going to have to, on a truck this age, even the replacement parts are not a guaranteed. The gaskets are not a guaranteed. You're really going to have to bide your time like I did if you're going to make a nice job of things. And especially if you want everything all painted up like that and you want to put it back together that looks like a little dollhouse under the hood because everything else is detailed under the hood. An LMC truck, they slipped me the weenie again. I got a the wheelhouse, the plastic wheelhouse. One thing is not like the other. It's definitely not like the I might end up putting the old one back in there trying to get things apart. And I don't. I have a couple $100 in parts I bought for this thing that are just literally shit parts. And that's what happens when you do stuff like this. These rehabs, they might look easy. Those other guys, Derek and them, those guys are full-time mechanics. But you and me, I don't do all these rehabs all the time. This is only a part-time gig for me too. So when you step on those booby traps, like I stepped on this thing, it's a booby trap. All right, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my beer. But the Offenhauser, once you have all that garbage that's in there and all that pollution stuff out of your way, doing what I did to that engine is a breeze. But it's taking the front clip off the truck basically, because you have no need for all those whistles and bells that are still remaining under there and all that wiring. So strip the front end of the truck off and then get rid of the garbage. All I need is my alternator connection. All I need is my windshield wiper connection and my sensors and stuff like that, my other sensors and that. I'm going to use the triple gauge, so I'm not even going to use those. Most of that can go. Unless I can piggyback the system. I think the Bosch, the reason why I buy them, because most of them, they have fittings where you can piggyback on top of the original sensor. There's another port for the original sensor on them. If not, I'll get the kit, because the kit exists. You can use your original gauges and you can use those gauges too, but you need the kit to convert that. So that is basically my video, and once I figure out what all the plugs are for and where all the plugs go, hows and whys, we're in business. So I found the headlights. I know where the headlights are. I've known where that stuff is. All that other stuff with those battery cables and all that other crap there, that's going to get replaced because it's junk. It's garbage. So I'm going to go actually to the store and I'm going to get some battery cables. They're only $8.99, $10. But I have a better part of, just in nuts and bolts on this truck, I have a better part of almost 200 bucks. Believe that or not, because I bought body bolts, I bought other stuff. And I don't want that cheap stuff off the internet that them companies are selling. We got a kit for a Chrysler car, and I think it was from AMT Metals, which I thought it would be fabulous stuff. Well, it was shit. It rusted up as soon as water hit it. That's not something, and unless it was a clone kit with their name on it. I've had that stuff happen to me too. When you go through second-party vendors, even Jegs, even Summit, they've had it happen to them. It's Chinese clone stuff, and they didn't know any better when they bought it from their vendors. All right, that's the end of my video, and enjoy your weekend. I'm going to get some rest tonight because I desperately need it.